I have been very impressed here with how closely Australians are following American politics. So you might remember we had a presidential election in 2016 that turned out a surprising direction. And I thought to myself, I don't think I understand this country. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm always happy with maybe I'm wrong.
What did you think it was, and what was the reality that was starting to emerge?
Well, a lot of, at the time, friends of mine were saying the left wing, they don't understand the working class, and you've misunderstood them. There's whole parts of the country that the coastal elites have snobbishly looked down on, which is not the narrative I have today about what happened. So I thought, I'm up for that. I'm up for being a jerk. Like, that's totally, definitely possible. So I immediately rented an RV, and I did it in 2 different trips, down into the American Southwest, Arizona, and New Mexico, and then I went into the Deep South, where I really wanted to go, because it was what scared me the most. Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, yeah.
And what did you find?
I found that, well, I tried to, I put this in the book, but I tried to disguise myself. My mom was really scared for me, certainly in the South. She's from the South. So she told me to call everyone sir or ma'am, that everyone likes that down there. Not to tell them I was from San Francisco. Tell them I'm from Maryland, which I am, which is technically the South, but no one there would believe that. And to maybe dress differently. So I went to a Walmart, our big store. You don't have Walmarts here, do you?
Do we yet?
Like
I don't
giant,
think so.
like
No.
5 times the size of this room with crap in it. I went to one of those and I bought like a giant t-shirt with a country music band and cargo shorts and a baseball cap and some American flags and like the kind of sunglasses no homosexual would ever wear, which are like the wrap-around sunglasses. And I was like, the disguise is complete.
You're painting quite an indelible picture in our minds. But as you say all of that, it also sounds like you're doing drag.
It was drag, because it's all drag, right? So I was definitely in drag as a heterosexual, white, middle-aged man. And I'm like, the South is made for me. And what was interesting is, like, it fooled nobody. I would go to like a really rural bar and sit there and put music on the jukebox, and they'd be like, honey, everyone's welcome here.
What were the questions and what were the feelings that you had about whiteness that you wanted to invest in the book? Because I feel like those questions are really palpable.
That is fascinating to hear you say that. I have to say my instincts were not great at the beginning. I was talking about planning this book, and I was at this artist retreat and talking with some writers of color, American, and they were like, is it going to be one of those books where a white guy meets a lot of different people of different races and learns things in like a church? And I'm like, no, I would never write that kind of book. Well, because I mean, the instinct is there to go back to what we've seen before. And one of them said, could you write a book about whiteness? Because I just don't get what that is.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know what it is. I want the white person to tell me what whiteness is, because it's a mystery. And I was like, of course my instinct was naive. I was like, well, I don't know what whiteness is, which is, I think, what a lot of white people, we sort of think of it as being invisible or something, instead of being part of a very specific system. And I think there were the summer of George Floyd happened a few years later, where he was murdered by the police. And I think I certainly sat and thought, I have to rethink my part in this. Like, I thought of myself as a good person, and like I had done all the right things. I have to think about it. And I think about my book too. And one thing grammatically I wanted to make sure was that the default human being was not a white man. So that if the server came over and poured coffee, I would, often in novels, they'll tell you if they're black, because that's important to know. But if they're not, then they must be white. And that's a lot of the English language literature. And I just it can't be that way anymore. And it was certainly not helpful in my book about crossing America, where he's going to meet all kinds of people. So, but I think I'm not the only person who's doing that. I think, but I also thought about, this is peculiarly American, is that when I'm asked about where my people come from, I have a totally bullshit story that's been passed down to me that I can tell them. And the story is that Moses Greer came here in 1670 from Scotland, and that we're all descended from him. I'm descended from one person? It's like there's like 1,000 people who like contributed to whatever I am, but I have this phony story that is really a certificate of whiteness, is what it is. And every time I talked to a lot of people who would have similar stories. I couldn't believe how similar our stories all were, so I put them in the book, and I tried to give Arthur Less the most ridiculous backstory I could think of, which is that he's a Walloon. His ancestor, Prudent de Less, came over to found New Sweden from Wallonia. And I thought, that's just totally ridiculous. Because I wanted to make fun of that kind of Mayflower story that we all have, which just doesn't make any sense.